Hello again everyone, back just for another quick visit again today I'm afraid. On that note, I wanted to put it out there and ask people, which do you prefer? Some days I will literally get maybe an hour, 2 hours to do something in here, which isn't a lot of time really. That'll normally condense down into about sort of 10-15 minutes worth of footage. And on some days I'll get a full day or maybe 6 hours or something, which can leave me with an hour's worth of footage or even more. And I'm just really wondering whether people prefer to get these things as they come, or whether they like me to break the videos down into so that one video kind of covers one job, if you see what I mean, or just post what I have at the end of every day. So let me know your thoughts on that below anyway. So again, today is going to be another quick one. Last time you saw me put the guitar body on a little bit of a diet. I removed some material from around the edges and also did some work on the pillar drill to sort of hollow out the horns a little bit. Today I thought I'd look at basically just tidying that up a little bit. I already have some flat chisels knocking about somewhere, and I've also got some cheapo gouges, and I do mean cheap. I think it was less than £15 for the entire set. I've already been warned that these are not particularly good, and I suspect to get some decent use out of them I'm probably going to have to waste a lot of time sharpening them up to start with, but can't be helped. And of course we've got sandpaper and all that kind of thing as well. So that's the plan. We're just going to look at, as I say, smoothing down that edge and smoothing out these hollows that we've already taken. So that's the plan for today. Let's get to it. Yep, so I just had a little experiment with these gouges and they are not sharp in the slightest. So I'm going to have to put some time in and just see if I can get a sharper edge on these using the old oil stone. I won't make you sit through all of that because you've seen me sharpen stuff before. Well, my sharpening's pretty atrocious, and these chisels or gouges aren't the best, but we'll have a little go, see what happens. If not, we might just have to resort to brute force and sandpaper, but let's give it a go. So I don't know how well you can see on camera here, but I'm just basically trying to remove the corners from where I routed in last time. And first impressions, attempting to sharpen these has made a difference. They are at least cutting in a little bit now, but it's not ideal. It's not sharp enough really. I don't know whether it's down to my inability to sharpen very well, or the poor quality of the gouges. I'd imagine it's a little bit of both. Let's try this one. Alright, so that's definitely the one for the job. Still not anywhere near as easy or as sharp as it should be though. I still think I'm going to persevere, just try and get the blunt corner off these routes, and then I think I'll have to do the rest with sanding. You can probably tell I'm struggling. I mean, both of them will get there eventually. I think without a really nice sharp gouge, it's quite difficult. But I really would like to get that down to a nice smooth surface. I've got one more thing to try. Well, on first inspection, it's not neat, but the Dremel actually seems to be doing the job there. You can see where I'm kind of eating away at the material there. If I can get that roughly down flush, which I am doing, I can then hand sand that. So that's obviously complete lunacy and a complete abuse of tools. The Dremel sanding, actually, I don't know if I can really get it so you can see on that camera. Let me go off the tripod. I don't know if you can see, that is actually eating away quite nicely inside to a point where I could definitely smooth that out by hand sanding it and it would be absolutely fine, but it is just wasting through the attachments. I tried the little grinding thing, which again is just even worse, really. What I was actually looking for, which isn't here, we do have a little, I think it's also made by Dremel, a little sander which we tend to call the finger sander. I don't know what the proper name for it is, where it's actually like a little point that sticks out like this, and then it has a belt that actually goes around lengthways, so you can actually get into fine points and just eat away like that with the sander, which I think would actually be ideal for this job, but I'm not going to get it here today, so I think I might actually just leave that for now and save it for when I've got a proper tool for the job. It's a shame the gouges didn't work really, but unfortunately just my sharpening skills and probably the quality of those gouges just aren't up to it. So I'll continue to do a little bit of this. There is actually still some points I can take off here, I think, with a flat chisel, so I'll do those now. So I think that's as far as I want to go with that, hacking away at it with a chisel, at least for now. Obviously I've shown some kind of complete abuse of tools today. Nothing that I've used today has really been used in the manner in which it's intended, but it's working. At least it's getting that material removed, and we're kind of nearing the final stage with this. I will try and get a hold of that little sander for next time, because I think it will just make the job of smoothing all of this off a hell of a lot easier. I could do it by hand, but it will take a very long time, so it's worth trying. I'm very conscious of the fact that all we've really done is focus on this body piece for quite some time now, so even though I'm probably not going to have time to do too much today, I thought I'd show you something else. Alright, so I promised we'd look at something different. Just to let you know, by the way, like I said, I know we've been completely abusing tools and all the rest of it in what we've just been doing, But just to let you know, I have had a little look off camera there in better light at what we've done so far, and everything does seem to be moving in the right direction. As I said, I'd like to try with that little sander that I think is going to be the best thing to accelerate that job along of getting everything perfectly smooth. It will of course have to be finished by hand sanding, but I'm putting that to one side for now and hoping that that sander is going to remedy things for us going forward. So in the meantime, I promised that we'd have a little look at something else. So far in this build, it's my first build and I've completely bitten off more than I can chew, I'm sure. I've not done anything that you're supposed to do for your first build. I mean, hollow bodies are no, carved tops and everything like that are probably a no. It's just complicated. Just to make things a little bit worse, for my neck, the shape of the neck and the way it attaches to the body and everything like that's going to be pretty standard. It's just going to be a standard PRS-esque neck. However, the wood that I've chosen is this. This is palm wood, i.e. coconut palm tree, which strictly speaking isn't even technically wood. It's actually a grass, which is why you see this lovely flecked grain in it, which is absolutely fantastic looking. Now that's lightened up considerably since I first got it. If you look at the, I'm trying to say, if you look at the ends where it's still waxed, this kind of dark colour that you see here is closer to how it was. Maybe just on this corner you can see there where it's still dark. As it's dried out, it's lightened up a little bit. But I would imagine under a heavy gloss it would probably return to that slightly darker colour. But anyway, this wood looks fantastic. As I say, it's not even really wood, is it? But in theory it has some advantages in that because it doesn't have rings in like traditional wood, it should expand and contract in a much more uniform manner. Although that said, it actually has a little bit of a twist in it as it is at the moment that it's got from drying out. So I'm not sure how much truth there is in that. However, the real challenge is that I expect this is going to be absolutely impossible to work with. I don't know if you can really see on camera, but obviously it's made up of these sort of like dark flecks and then the whiter, lighter substance. The lighter stuff, I would say it's not dissimilar to cork. It's fairly soft, you can just about pick it out with your fingernail. And the dark stuff is more like a hardwood that's kind of like embedded in the cork with in sort of like almost like pine needle type shards, which means it's just absolutely prone to tearing out. So I mentioned that it's got a bit of a twist in it. Normally I would take a plane to that and try and get one surface perfectly level and kind of go from there. But I really don't know whether it's going to tolerate being planed without just ripping out the grain. I suspect the more and more I look at this that it kind of depends where you try to plane it, because the grain does change quite considerably as you go through it. So I'm going to have a little play with this and see if I think it's going to be workable. If it is going to be workable, we'll proceed to try and do a neck with it. Given that the wood has already twisted some, I'm probably going to make a multi-laminate neck. If I find that the wood is completely unworkable, then I won't make the neck out of this. I'll order something a bit more standard like mahogany or something like that. And this will still be perfectly salvageable to make things like neck lamination strips or fretboards or that kind of thing. But I think it's fairly unique. I don't think I've seen anyone else actually make the core part of either a neck or a body out of this kind of wood before, despite it looking so great. There's probably good reason for that, but I thought it'd be fun to try. So one problem we seem to be having here is, because as I described this isn't normal wood, the cork-like material that the wood's actually made out of is actually jamming up inside the plane there rather than come off in shavings, which is making it pretty much ineffective. So I'm not sure whether it is going to plane, to be honest. So as far as I can tell at this point in time, the twist is pretty much out, but I think I've gone a little bit low in this corner. The entirety of my neck should be about 660mm. So the bit I want to use, pretty flat, but it still has a slight high spot about there. Alright, time for a cunning plan. Obviously I've been trying to level this using the plane, which I have very little experience of, and it's the worst possible wood probably to try doing that with. It's not like it's a nice piece of pine or something like that. Not that I would normally describe pine as nice, but there you go. I have managed to get this underlying face that I've written on relatively flat. I think it's pretty much flat enough. However, I need to get at least one of these edges straight as well, one of these outer edges. And I think I'm struggling to do that with a plane. So I have a cunning plan. What I'm going to attempt, I've never seen this done before, I don't know if it's going to work. But here I have a scrap piece of pine board, which I've measured, and it has some perfectly straight and true edges. What I'm thinking is, if I draw a centre line on this, and a centre line on this, and then stick this board to that board, I should be able to run it through the saw with a fence on and effectively take a cut off this edge that's going to leave me with a nice straight edge. In my head that seems like it should work absolutely no problem. The overall body piece needs to be 84mm if I don't want to have to put wings on the headstock. And that's before you factor in any kind of lamination whereby I would put another piece down the middle or anything like that. So in reality I've got loads to spare. I've got a good inch or so of wood at least to spare that I can take off the edge of this neck blank. So I'm going to attempt to do that, exactly what I've just said. So I'll get that marked up. Well, I'd say that's stuck. Let's prep the bandsaw. Okay, so sit rep. First off, when we came to use the bandsaw, it needed some maintenance, and by maintenance I mean entirely disassembling and putting back together again, because the guide, which should be height adjustable, was effectively jammed. So we had to take the whole thing apart to free up that mechanism. Turned out it had actually jammed up with some sawdust. Unfortunately, that's just probably a consequence of the fact we don't have proper dust extraction hooked up to it. But we got that running in the end. And then eventually, as the keen-eyed amongst you will have noticed, Frank lent me an extra pair of hands to just help me feed the wood through the bandsaw. I kept the bandsaw fence clamped down just for a little bit of extra security. I think we did manage to get it fed all the way through firmly against the fence. Unfortunately, it is just the nature of the bandsaw that the blade will travel ever so slightly, so it's probably not going to be a perfect edge, but putting the straight edge on there, it seems damn close. And I think even maybe just a little bit of a sand will get it pretty much exactly there. The ideal tool for that job obviously would be a table saw, but unfortunately I just don't have one. If anyone has actually ever managed to do multi-laminate neck well without a table saw, I'd be really interested to hear how you managed to do that. In case anyone's interested, the offcut is actually here, so that's how much we managed to take off. That might actually itself serve as a lamination piece, who knows. So yeah, it's been a bit of a tough day, but we got there in the end. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to call it a night, because it quite literally is the night, and I don't really want to be running the table saw any longer. But I'm quite keen to get back and make those further cuts and see what we're left with. So hopefully I might make it back tomorrow, who knows. But until next time, goodbye.